Hi everybody, heartfelt condolences to everybody that's been touched or suffered through this horrific event at Grenfell Tower block in London. And I'm making this video now because it is an alert to the British public about, well, there's evidence now that they are covering up, okay? And when I see evidence of the corporation responsible for this covering up, suddenly removing evidence from the internet, then I get really, really suspicious and very angry when probably over 100 people and children have been killed, murdered really, by this, okay? Now, on my Twitter today, it was this afternoon, I shared a post, and it was this post. I'm just going to get it up on my bookmarks to show you that it is on my bookmarks. Grenfell Tower, London, W1112Q, Regeneration Project, okay? And it was all about, well, basically, it was the proposals from a corporation to the, it was like just the report of what they were doing to the building and how it was going to look much better. It was going to be more environmentally friendly. And obviously they weren't referring to, that wasn't eco-environmentally friendly. They just meant environmentally friendly in that it was going to be a lot prettier. And that, I tell you, it must have been repeated about 6 times about how pretty it was going to look, how much nicer it was going to look, how it was going to improve the whole environment. It was just going to look much better. Okay. So then when you click on this, now, because I did it on my Twitter, this is what you get. Page not found, you know, and I will show you. I will show you it. I'll do it now. Page not found. Instead, so I did a manual search, you know, I went onto that, I got that, and this is what came up. Update. They've removed the page, they've replaced it with this: "We are extremely saddened to hear of the recent events." No, they're not. They're not extremely saddened. They made a lot of money out of covering a building that put people at risk. And now all this is about the large-scale works, which includes an upgrade of the cladding to the exterior of the building, new windows, a total new heating and lobby smoke, all of which will greatly enhance the efficiency. You know, that was not it. There was absolutely nothing about that in the original report. Nothing at all. Okay, it was all about, I wish I took a screenshot of it, and I hope somebody has somewhere, and I do ask you to come forward, share that screenshot please, to show us exactly that all they were saying was how much better that building was going to look, how it was no longer going to be an eyesore, it was going to be a lot more environmentally friendly. Well, this here, and unfortunately I can't get it because it's forcing me to subscribe to it, you know, which I don't really want to. It's international business times, but basically it's a full list of landlord Tory MPs who voted against making properties fit for human habitation, because at least 71 of the Tory MPs who voted against an amendment to force landlords to make sure their properties are, quote, fit for human habitation, are private landlords themselves. And it turns out that 312 Conservatives voted against 219 Labour MPs against making properties fit for human habitation. So, you know, this property was not fit for human habitation. As soon as they'd covered it with that non-fire retardant crap. And, you know, nobody's mentioned anything about these fumes. Are they toxic? Because there was no mention about fire hazard or anything at all in that report that they've now removed. Now, to me, okay, that's serious from the very company that actually covered this building. That is serious. They've removed evidence. They have removed evidence. And I want that. I believe that we should question them now. Why are you removing evidence? Because you have committed a corporate crime. You took full advantage of the fact that a property doesn't have to be fit for human habitation, does it? As long as it looks pretty. So we don't need to worry about the humans inside. The fact that they've got no fire escape, no sprinklers. The lifts aren't working. The fire alarms don't work. And actually, they've been told, very dangerously, considering the building was covered in a highly flammable cladding, they were told to stay in their homes. The absolute worst thing they could have done. In the event of fire, stay in your flat. Every fireman that's spoken has said, usually in these blocks, it just stays contained on the one floor or the one flat. But because this cladding was here, it caught sides to the building. For wham, it went up, 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 up. People get smoke inhalation. You know, nobody on top 3 floors survived. What, only the top 3 floors? How did he know? This is Lily Allen, and, you know, hats off to her.
I've never in my entire life seen an event like this where the death count has been downplayed by the mainstream media. 17, I'm sorry, but I'm hearing from people that the figure is much closer to 150 and that many of those people are children.
In thanking you, I'm bound to say that the difficulty is that...
Those are off the record numbers that I've been given from policemen and from firemen.
So they cut her off there. And then, you know, she says down here, I'm sad to say, BBC Newsnight just cancelled me for tonight's show. They have someone from the council coming on instead. Because I think she's right. Now, it is extremely disturbing to witness this. That when you realise that 10 fire stations in 2014, 10 London stations were closed due to cuts. Okay. And this was, this is like a republish. It was being shared a lot today. And, you know, I always read the comments. They're a good reflection of the British, where the British public's at, you know. And one person has put, gotta love the indie regurgitating stories from 3 years ago and placing them on the front page, and he's got 18 dislikes. Minus, you see, minus 18 likes. What? You can't see the relevance today then? No doubt Tory scum, 23 likes. And this is what I mean about this country and this recent general election. Okay, because I don't believe that we've got a hung parliament in truth. Because I believe, according to my lawful suspicion, that Tories all had a lot more votes to each individual Tory had than the average British, the average member of the British public. You know, the postal votes. I do believe it has been abused. And that's the only reason why we've got a hung parliament. Because I believe this is the reflection. Labour should have won by a landslide. Okay? But no, instead we get a hung parliament because, why? The Tories cheated. With their usual cheat of giving themselves extra votes through postal votes. For their extra properties in Britain and abroad. And wherever. Their traditional right. That was actually abolished in 1948 after World War II. Tories were no longer allowed to have 3 or 4 or 5 votes for every property they had and for whatever university they graduated from. Do you know they were even allowed to have a vote from the university that they graduated from? So everybody who'd been to university, no matter where they were living, they had a vote from the constituency, and also they were able to vote in their university's constituency as well. Yes. And then they'd get another vote for any other property they had in any other constituency. This is what I mean. This is what they were doing. Cheat, 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 cheat. And I believe they're still doing it. And they do it because they believe they have rights. They believe that they have more rights. Rich people should have more rights than poor people. Okay. Now, I remember, I think it was 2013, Ian Duncan Smith having to face a tribunal about what he'd been doing with the benefits. And it was televised, it was on national TV. And he called the British people stock. On national TV, he called us stock. And when the tribunal panel all, you know, made noises of disgust about that, he turned round and he said, "Oh, you know, that's what we call them." And you know, I've tried to find that quote. I've even been on YouTube and looked, and they've cut it out where he said that. But he did say it. He called the British people stock. And I was outraged. And at the time, I felt the whole country should have been outraged, because it's a very, very serious matter when you've got your government ministers calling the public stock. And they're voting against making properties, forcing landlords to make properties fit for human habitation. So obviously, you know, this property, according to the company, this company that clad it, and the council, they didn't need to make sure this property was fit for human habitation. Just as long as it looked all right. It doesn't matter if it's unfit for human habitation. Because they're not really humans, the people who are living in here, are they? Because it's a council property. They're all poor people. They're stock. This is manslaughter, and really it's murder. It is murder for a construction company. Okay, they surely must know. Have they got no conscience? Are they sadists, these people? I'm beginning to wonder. They just don't care. Oh, well, they'll get burnt. We'll get a few slaps on the wrist. We've got no conscience. We're demons. There's only us who are human beings. These people aren't human. You know, they're probably better off dead. Anyway, is that the kind of things that they're saying? Because it seems to me that is what they've said. That any company could cover a building with shit like this. And, you know, and then you find out this is 10 fire stations have been closed down. That these corporate people are allowed to go onto public properties, council properties, and start covering them with shit. And there's no fire authority, there's no authority from the fire that has to go and check to make sure that these things aren't a risk. I mean, even the firefighters were at risk as stuff was falling off. and the smoke. And somebody commented on Twitter today, which I did share, that, you know, we aren't even allowed to donate a sofa that isn't fire retardant. We're not even allowed to use a sofa that isn't fire retardant. But a corporation is allowed on behalf of the council to go and just cover a whole block of flats with a highly flammable cladding. And nobody asked any questions about that. There was no mention that this was a fire risk, because that was what caught fire. That's what spread the fire. As every fire officer has said, most fires are stay contained. A building doesn't go up like this. And it's absolutely horrific. And I am so upset, and so are so many people, so upset. And this is Labour MP.
This is the richest borough in our country, treating its citizens in this way, and we should call it what it is. It's corporate manslaughter. That's what it is. And there should be arrests made, frankly. It is an outrage. Many of us across the country have been caught up in an election, knocking on housing estate doors right across the country, travelling up to the top floors of tower blocks. And we know, as politicians, that the conditions in this country are unacceptable. We built buildings in the 70s. Those 70s buildings, many of them should be demolished. They haven't got easy fire escapes. They've got no sprinklers. It's totally unacceptable in Britain that this is allowed to happen and people lose their lives in this way. And people should be held to account.
Oh, bless him. You know, MP David Lammy, well said. And he's very, very upset because he has heard nothing from their family friend, Kadia Say, age 24. She was an artist, and as he says, the photographer lived on the 20th floor of the tower block with her mother, Mary Mendy. As the seconds pass, we grow more sad and bleak every second. And he is exactly right. It is. Arrests should be made. People, you know, professional people, when they're given that kind of power to, you know, to go around cladding public properties, then they need to be held accountable. The council needs to be held accountable. The councillors that were directly involved with this, all of them need to be up in court on charges of manslaughter because they did not ask the simple question, what about fire resistance? We need to see the reports. We need to consult with the local fire brigades to check this, to see if it's going to be safe. The corporation itself, surely you must have done some tests. You can't be that stupid. You're not allowed to be that stupid and be having access to public funds to redevelop public properties, and as a result people are dead and injured and have lost everything that they have and have been traumatised, terrorised actually, and even the firemen and the police put at risk that had to deal with it. And as I say, removing evidence, the evidence of the original article that was on here, that should be here and that was removed today, that said all about the project and how it was going to be environmentally friendly and blah blah blah, and nothing at all about the fire risk. And really, what do we expect from a government, you know, that the majority voted against forcing landlords to make sure their properties are fit for human habitation? A government that calls the British people stock. What would we expect? And that is why it is so deadly serious, this. British people, we need to wake up. We need to wake up and remove these monsters from power. And there does need to be arrests. Because they cannot be allowed to get away with this. This is not accidental. This is absolute negligence, criminal negligence, to knowingly clad a building in stuff like that. And then even start removing evidence from the internet. Oh, update, and replacing it, and then putting something about fire, you know. No. So I really hope somebody out there did take a screenshot of the original article that was here to show people exactly what it said, and how there was no mention at all about the well-being or benefits to the residents inside this building. It was purely for it to look good on the outside. And that really is what they're all about, isn't it? This Tory government. And the people who sail above the common workforce. As long as everything looks good on the outside, we don't need to know what's going on in the inside. The same with the workers, the people. Oh, please keep your feelings and your emotions, keep them all locked inside, whatever you're suffering. Pretend everything's all right, because that's your duty, to make sure that you look good on the outside. We don't care what's happened to you, if you've been abused, whatever you're suffering, if you're a battered wife, whatever, you're going to suffer in silence, because as long as everything looks good on the outside, we don't have to worry about what's on the inside, do we? Well, what is on the inside are our friends, our families, our compassion, our communities, our children, the love that we feel. For our fellow citizens, our fellow community members, rich or poor. And this is just blatant disregard. This does reflect a psychology, a ruling psychology that views the public as stock. And it is no wonder, is it, when we look at this Tory government, what is their next plan for Britain? Yes, to remove our human rights, which they're not satisfying. They've actually violated our human rights. The UN's called them up on it. You know, serious violations of human rights against the British people from our own government. And now they want to scrap them completely. You know, well, seriously, no. These people who've suffered, they are no more now, no more. They have not suffered in vain. They have not suffered and died in vain. No. And David Lammy is exactly right. We want arrests. This is manslaughter, if not outright murder, really, when you think about the levels of the corporate so-called professionalism that we should expect. If somebody's calling themselves a professional, then we should expect them to be a professional. Because that's the trust. But we can't trust them, can we? We can't trust them. So actually, yes, we do need now to make sure, and I would ask the Labour to bring this amendment back again now and force landlords to make properties habitable, fit for human habitation. They need to know that their properties need to be fit for human habitation. And no, that doesn't mean going totally overboard and crazy like you usually do. But it does mean making sure that there are sprinklers in blocks of flats, that flats aren't covered in highly flammable cladding. It does mean making sure properties have a fire alarm and have fire escapes. And as I say, removing evidence, that is a criminal act, what you've done, WITT. So you better get this original thing that was there back up, because this is a criminal act. You've removed evidence, the evidence to show how little consideration you showed that was revealed in your report, how little consideration there was for the inhabitants of that block. And how your whole report focused on how it was going to look nicer for the community members of Kensington and Chelsea, you know. And as I say, this is what we should expect from a country that from a government calls its people stock and wants to remove our human rights. Well, this needs to end now. We need to wake up. Because this consciousness, this ruling power that's had a grip on Britain for how long? Really, it's time for us all to wake up to reality. Because the British people are not stock.